With Alan Wake 2 coming out in the next couple days, there are so many questions lingering after 13 years waiting for answers. And with the new Remedy Connected Universe tie-ins in the AWE DLC from Control, it seems we're left with more speculation and open-ended possibilities than we are with answers. I just wanted to put forward what I'd consider to be the top 5 questions fans want answered or addressed in Alan Wake 2. This list is by no means comprehensive, the lore is deep, the lore is wide. One might say, it's not a lake, it's an ocean. These are just the questions that I've seen the most commonly thrown around in my digging through the lore. So, here we go. Number 5. How will the Remedy Connected Universe tie-ins defined in Control be manifested in Alan Wake 2? There's a lot of curiosity about how the FBC and the events of Control will fit into everything once we're back in Bright Falls. How did Alan's writing impact those events? The powers of Cauldron Lake have always had this element of mystery as to how they work and how much power they actually have over reality. For example, does the FBC exist because Alan wrote about it to fit into his narrative? Or did it exist already, but he simply used the pieces of it he knew about to facilitate his escape attempt? And, while I'm at it, what is reached inside the other rooms in the Ocean View Motel? Seriously, so much good lore was added and left unanswered with Control. We need some of those loose ends loosely connected at the very least, if not fully tied up. Number 4. Who exactly is Thomas Zane in relation to the Remedy Connected Universe, and also his relationship and association with Alan? Thomas Zane obviously existed before Alan wrote Departure, because his books of poetry were there in the shoebox in Bird Lake Cabin before Alan wrote anything about the events. But for Alan having the clicker as a kid, and Thomas Zane knowing about Alan when he wrote those pages during the events that took place with him and Barbara Jagger back in the 1970s, it's either just the power of the lake that caused Alan's mom to invent the clicker story and for Alan to be afraid of the dark as Zane wrote it, and Zane just needed to wait for him to grow up to come to the cabin to help him as written. Or Zane somehow knew about Wake's existence and chose him as the character. He must have been a close enough acquaintance to know about the existence of the clicker being a thing between Alan and his mom, and to be able to take it and put it in the shoebox, and then write the pages about how powerful it was simply to imbue it with that strength for Alan's face-off with Barbara. But there are timeline issues with that as well. As lore states, Alan was born in 1978, but Zane went down in the lake in 1970. So how could he have been around? Maybe the same way Alan learned about the FBC from within the dark place. Glimpses of the outside world. Control also seems to imply that they may be one and the same, as the only time we see Zane out of his diver suit is in Control, and he looks and sounds exactly like Alan. Number 3. How does Mr. Scratch play into the story? What has he been up to, and what's his grand plan, if any? Control mentioned someone evil that looked like Alan was tormenting Alice in her apartment in New York, so he's obviously still alive and getting closer to her, but he's clearly too deranged and psycho to ever fool Alice into loving him first, like he threatened in American Nightmare. And with Alice now being monitored by the FBC and who knows what else since that report was written, it's possible that Mr. Scratch might have other things going on now instead. He never seemed to be one that had a grand plan, other than destroying Alan's life as it existed, and instead would just thrive on chaos and whatever takes his fancy at the time. What role does he play in Alan's ability to escape from the dark place as well? He only split off from Alan once he surrendered himself to the dark presence in Alice's place. Maybe they need to reunify first somehow for Alan to be able to escape, or he just needs to be killed. Also, while I'm at it, why did Thomas Zane know who he was? He's been down there a while too as well. Is there a Mr. Scratch version of Zane out in the world as well? Number 2. What has Alice been up to since American Nightmare and her contact with FBC? We find out she reached out to the FBC through a collectible in the AWE expansion for Control. Apparently she was given their phone number as part of the FBC civilian outreach program after the events of the incidents in Bright Falls. She discussed with them being haunted by an evil entity wearing Alan's face at night, and even included a picture of the figure she was seeing during these hauntings, who we can assume is Mr. Scratch. There's also some evidence given that the door that appears in the Ocean View Motel where Jesse sees Alan is suspected to have showed up when Alice visited the oldest house. She clearly has some larger role to play in the story, potentially much more than just being Alan's muse and inspiration to escape the dark place as she was in Alan Wake, the DLCs, and American Nightmare. Number 1. Will Alan finally get out of the dark place? Is this going to be the game where Alan finally makes his escape? It doesn't have to be the end of his story with the Dark Presence necessarily. I'm sure there's still a lot of lore to explore on that front. Or maybe the Dark Presence also escapes with him, and in future he'll have to contain it in the real world with the help of Jesse and the FBC, similar to the Hiss containment during Control. Who knows? But it would be a really rewarding outcome to this title if, at the very least, Alan is able to get out and reunite with Alice again. Let me know in the comments what other questions you've got that you'd love to get answered. There's tons of lore fruit in the RCU out there for the picking, so I'd love to hear any perspectives that I may have missed. I'm looking forward to playing Alan Wake 2 in a couple days, and I'll definitely have more to share then. Thanks so much for watching. Consider leaving a like and subscribe to help me towards making more content in the future, and as always, until next time my friends, be legendary.